this is a series of trainings being put on by Elevate Rapid City to help get information to the businesses that are out there that are trying to figure out what's going on and what they can and maybe can't do at this time. They're running these on health insurance, mental health, marketing, business, those types of things, so that it's just getting some information to you. So we're glad you're here. I'm personally be covering some health insurance stuff primarily from the group and the employer aspect. If you have missed any of the other trainings that they've got them on their YouTube channels. You can go watch them there. You can look for upcoming webinars. They've got those listed on their Facebook page. So lots of resources for you to go out and get that information. So my name is Matt Berger. I work for Western Dakota Insurors. I handle employee benefits, life insurance, disability, Medicare supplements, that type of stuff. So they were kind enough to ask me to come in and talk a little bit about this. We've been working pretty much daily with the carriers, trying to get answers and solutions for a lot of the questions that our employer groups have been asking. So we're going to try and go through some of that right now. This first slide that you can see is the South Dakota Department of Labor and Regulation. It's been up there for a while. You can see it all. Just list some of the things that the department encouraged and recommended the carriers to start doing if they weren't already doing it, in conjunction with some of the ACA rules and the essential health benefits. They've turned the COVID-19 testing and the treatments and some of that stuff into an essential health benefit temporarily. So if you have costs associated with that, or your employees do, or you know somebody that is going through this, unfortunately, if they have the health insurance and they're covered, these procedures and tests and labs are going to be covered for them. And you can see the costs are at no cost to that insured person. So pre-authorization requirements for some of this stuff have been waived. So you can just go see the doctor and have it done. Telehealth is big right now. Getting on with the social distancing that we've had, getting online with those doctors to go through your symptoms, to know whether you need to go in. Are you a priority for being tested? There's some of that information that's floating around right now with the number of tests that are out there. So as we go through this, pharmacy, some of you may know that they have gone ahead and just automatically authorized a pre-fill or an early refill on some of those maintenance medications that people take on a daily basis, or those that are required, that are truly needed to maintain that person's health. So you can go get those without any additional authorization. Some of the, if it is a controlled med or one of those specialty type meds, the pharmacy in some cases has to call to the provider and get those okayed to be filled. So 30, 60, 90 days, depending on the carrier. The networks have been increased. A lot of the out-of-network providers have been really encouraged to do their treatments and to do some things and treat them as an in-network, to take the insurance that they're there to sign agreements with them. It's still smart with anything health related to go ahead and ask your provider about your networks, but just have that conversation with your doctor. Make sure that we're doing things properly. There are some other things, and we'll be talking about them as it relates to premium here coming up in a couple of the next slides, specific carrier base. So we do have some of that. You can see the bottom, balance billing. If it was an out-of-network, that's the whole piece of the out-of-network providers. Maybe the insurance does its thing, and then you get a bill from them for the remainder of the charges. There's pieces in here, and every carrier is working with that. So trying to get those taken care of and covered by those doctors. So we're going to go through some of this. The first one, the largest share of the group product out there in South Dakota is Wellmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. These are their specific information. And again, we've been working with them, trying to get these updated from day to day. All of this information is subject to change on a daily basis because of legal and ACA requirements and the different parameters that are surrounding what we're dealing with right now. So this is the most up-to-date information I have from each of the carriers. One of them I updated about 25 minutes ago for this presentation. So as it pertains specifically to Wellmark now, these are just some questions here that primarily a lot of you have potentially been looking at your options when it comes to employees and having to reduce hours or send some of them home, potentially laying them off, furloughs, those types of things. So these are the questions that pertain to that and the guidance that we're getting from each of them. So what we're looking at from Wellmark in the fully insured side, which is all of the small group market. If you are self-funded plan, you know this. These are not the self-funded plans that we're talking about right now. What they have done is relaxed the guidelines on active employment. So for those of you that have reduced the hours for your employees or laid them off or furloughed them, okay, Wellmark is not requiring them to be actively at work in order to maintain their eligibility and stay on the insurance and stay covered. This will run until June 16th, okay? Potentially longer. Like I said, this is ever changing. They may extend that date out, but right now it's June 16th. The one asterisk with that is the premium payments need to continue to be made for all your employees, okay, in order for them to continue to have the coverage, okay. How do we do that? There's lots of, we've been talking to our employer groups about how do we do that. It runs again everything from the employer paying all of the premiums to the employers, not paying any additional at all. It's still a tough spot. We understand, but in order to keep and get this particular provision, you can see there in the bold, the contributions have to be the same as they have been running in the past months, or the employer has to pay more of the premium. That's what so the employee contributions have to remain the same or be less. So the employers are paying what they're paying now or all of it, up to all of it. So if you pay less than that, these particular relaxed guidelines are not going to apply to you. So now the question becomes with those payments. Wellmark is also granted an extension of the grace period. So essentially it's giving you 2 months, so that if your premium for March was due, and this is just an example, you would pay your premiums for March, but then your April and May premiums potentially cannot be due until the end of May. So it's an extension of what was there. Okay. If you do have that, you can see in here that email, fullyinsuredbilling@wellmark.com. Send them an email. Already had a few of my clients do that. They're working with the groups to take care of that, to set that up if you're not able to pay those premiums. Okay. One of the things that we're talking about in this market too is if you are not able to or can't because of your business structure or where you're at financially, you're not going to be able to pay those employees premiums or at least maintain where you're at. We've been getting guidance. Those particular groups will go away if you don't have any active employees on the health plan. So what does that mean? Well, if that's your situation and you have a grandfathered plan or a grandmothered or one of the transitional plans, the older plans that are not an ACA plan, Affordable Care Act plan, you will lose those. Those will go away when you come back to work and try to put the health plan back in place. The only option for you is going to be those ACA plans. You can, if you have an agent, you can certainly go over them what that means rate-wise and coverage-wise. But most people have tried to hang on to their grandfathered and non-grandfathered plans as long as they can. So again, as with all of this, if you have questions and you have an agent that you work with, give them a call and go over this with them. They should be able to get you the answers they need. So if you happen to be self-funded or self-insured, you can see there in red, the administrative fees, the claims costs, the stop loss premiums that are associated with those self-funded plans are going to continue to be required to be paid. Same procedures as they are in the fully insured, okay? And the contributions to the employee's coverage is again the same as it is in the fully insured. The difference is in the self-funded world, we have stop loss coverage on the back end of it. So if that coverage is through Wellmark, okay, and your stop loss eligibility is impacted by this due to the reduction in the workforce through the same June 16 date, okay, you meet the same eligibility guidelines as above. Okay, they will continue to be paid as we've been seeing them. You're not going to have to amend your plan document to allow the continued. It's just going to be an automatic process. Okay, the last couple sentences there are important. In order to process the claims, Walmart needs to be made aware of any of those plan changes that you're making as soon as possible. Okay, and they're going to continue to evaluate all of this. Now, if you do have a stop loss provider that is not Walmart, you need to check with them to see what their guidelines are as it pertains to all of this. So, and I should say, as we're going through all of this, there's a questions tab. If you guys can write questions down on a piece of paper, we'll get to those when we get done with the slideshow. Unfortunately, the way this is set up, we can't jump back and forth with those and keep it seamless. So these are some of the things that most of the carriers are doing, and we'll see as it pertains to virtual visits and the diagnostic testing, again, like we talked about with the Department of Labor. So Wellmark is allowing their doctor on demand telemedicine to continue to serve the public, but they're doing away with the member cost share. So it's at a $0 cost share for you to use these services. Okay. If your current health provider, okay, you don't have a primary care physician or a doctor you see, we want to use the doctors on demand. Okay. If you have a doctor that uses another service, Walmart is allowing that to be done as well, and they're working to coordinate those costs and to give those to you at a no cost as well. So if you don't have video and you don't have it on your phone, they're allowing you to phone and do telephonic visits with those as well. So everything that we can try and do to keep this social distance and prevent the spread, Wellmark and the other carriers are being very, very generous with how they're treating it. Again, there you see diagnostic tests for the virus. There's no cost share for the appropriate testing to establish the diagnosis of it, and then the treatment as well. The prescription medications, they followed the guidelines. They're doing early refills up to 30 days with Wellmark, okay? So you can go get a 30-day supply before your prescription is really due to get you through this. Again, that could be extended and continued on past some of these dates, okay? That is an automatic piece. You do not have to have that pre-authorized. Wellmark does have their Be Well 24/7 telephone line. It's a hotline. You can call in. All of the different health-related aspects that are coming about because of this, the mental health, nurse questions, give them a call. They'll be able to get you directed, get you some answers, okay? The small businesses there, you can see number 5, they're working with this. That's kind of what we're talking about today. The individual, it says there's individual and small business policyholders, 60 days to make premium payments. That's where that example was that I provided. And I see individual and my mind goes to the individual. If you're a sole proprietor and you have an individual plan, okay, these premium extensions on the individual side are good as well, okay? You just need to contact Wellmark on their individual billing email and let them know what's going on. Communication is really important right now with your carriers. They're trying to do what they can for everybody involved, okay? And then again, reimbursing the virtual visits, okay? They're reimbursing those costs to you when they come through. So, like I said, really trying to do this, and again, this changes daily. So keep up, maintain contact with your agents. If something comes up, if you have a weird scenario, please call us and we can relay those questions on to Wellmark if we don't have the answers for them. We've done that. We've been doing that all week and we're getting our answers that we need to. So I'm going to step on, we're going to move on from Wellmark to Sanford. There's a few carriers out there and a few clients on the group side. They are doing much of what Wellmark is as well. The same type of guidelines. There's a few different tweaks that we're going to talk about here in just a second on the next slide. But this is just like the slide we just saw. Coverages and updates, the COVID-19 testing, office and ER visits are going to be covered with Sanford when you go in if it's related to the testing. The virtual care, Sanford has its own hospital network. So they've always had their virtual care. It's going to be at no cost to you. Okay. So if you have Sanford, you know, be smart about it, do the telephonic, and then let them direct you where you need to go and get your next steps. Sanford is extending their prior authorizations, okay, so that you can maintain at least a 90-day supply of any maintenance drugs, okay? And they are doing that with their prior authorization stuff as well, so it's automatic. So the balance billing, surprise medical bills, they're working again with them, trying to keep that off. So, you know, when it comes to the treatments, they're covering those in and out of network, but everything else you need to be careful, have that communication with your doctor, okay? Here is their specific information as it pertains to the employer-employee relationship. So their wording's a little bit different. So they're the furlough rather than laid off. There's a designation here. So, and some people have said, what's the difference between furloughed and laid off? And basically it's, are you still working? Are you still employed? Or have you been completely laid off and no longer an employee? If you are a furloughed employee on a Sanford plan, okay, the flexibility for the employer is still there as long as the premium payments continue to be paid on the same basis as they currently are as far as the employer contribution and the employee contribution, okay? The big difference here based on their wording, okay, is if employees are laid off, okay, and that's the middle piece here, the third question. If they are terminating employees or laying them off, the employer needs to do the COBRA notification to their employees because they're not going to be allowed to stay on the plan. The individuals will have that 60-day time frame that COBRA requires to look at things, come back on, take COBRA, elect what they want to do, whether they want to go to the individual market or not, okay? The individual market has the subsidy eligibility based on income, but in order to maintain that employer plan, you have to have at least one eligible employee left on the plan to keep it in place. Okay. If your particular plan, you don't have any employees that are left on and that plan terminates, okay, it has no active employees, again, no active employees, okay, they will terminate the contract. COBRA benefits are no longer applicable because there is no plan to tie them to, okay? So in that point, all the individuals are going to have to be directed to the individual market to get their coverage. I've talked to some employers, that's what they're being forced to do. Their employees have contacted me to get those set up to try and get those coverages and what their options are. So again, if that is the case, have your employees contact someone, take a look at the individual market, the healthcare.gov, the different carrier websites to get the information so they know what they're looking at, okay? Some of the things that the carriers are doing as well, if we're looking at temporary, and the second question, reduced hours for employees or furloughed employees, what happens when they come back to work? Okay, both Wellmark and Sanford have said during this time frame, when they come back to work, they're put right back on the health insurance plan, effective the first of the month following the rehire date. Okay, so the new hire wait periods are no longer applicable if you don't want them to be. Okay, if you have a new hire that you've just hired and now you're being laid off and their hours of eligibility, they would continue to have to meet those hours of eligibility before they're put on the plan. Scenarios. So if you have reduced your hours, and I've tried to get clarification of if we're temporarily, can we call it reduced hours? Reducing their hours to keep them on the plan and continue what we're doing instead of laying them off. Yes, you can, but it has to truly be a reduction of hours. We don't have any guidance on whether reducing the hours for 2 to 3 weeks and then being back to 40 hours a week, how that's going to be treated. I can see that kind of coming up. I would assume, and again, not for sure, not anything specific, but that reducing those hours would allow them to stay on the plan and then come back. Is that considered laying off? I'm not sure what to tell you there. We haven't gotten any guidance from the carriers, again, how they're going to treat that. But when they come back, they will be eligible, okay, to come back the first of the month, okay? Depending on where you change the new hire wait period to be for this scenario. And again, I'm sure that in trying to cover this, there's lots of questions out there that I may not be hitting. Keep them, we'll get to those here in a second. I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability for what we know. So moving on to Avera, there is their website. We have not received any guidance from Avera on how any of this is being treated. I've been in contact with them all week trying to get something from them. They just have not made a decision on how they're going to treat this. And as soon as we know something, we can pass that along to our employer groups. If you have an agent, we're going to be passing that information on. We're sending emails out every day to our groups with the updated information as well. So unfortunately, Avera didn't have anything for us at this time. So the next slide is just in here for informational purposes. I think, Rachel, we can make these slides available. Yeah, so we can make these slides available. The next few slides are basically dealing with the March 16th Families First Coronavirus Act. It's just purely information for you guys. If you want to go through this and read it on how FMLA and Fair Labor Standards and some of the HR scenarios play out under this act that they passed in March. So it's all in here. I'm just going to kind of quick scan through them. It talks about employer size, how many employees you have, what it all means for FMLA, what are some of the exceptions for different group sizes. So again, it's all in here with the website. You can see it there at the bottom that you can go to, and that's where that report is. So outside of that, that's the last slide. So we are done with the slides. And so now you get to look at my mugshot while we're talking here. We appreciate you guys going through this. Don't forget, Elevate Rapid City's Facebook page has the upcoming webinars that they're going to be putting on. And then, of course, the YouTube channel will have all of these recorded webinars on them if you want to go back to them. If you do want the slides that are in here just for informational purposes, have them, either get a hold of Rachel with Elevate, or she's going to email those out to you so you have them. We appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying healthy, staying safe, and we'll get through this all out the back end of it, and hopefully things get back to normal as quick as they can. So we appreciate it. Thanks for being here, and we're going to sign off.